Good morning, good morning. I have roosters crowing outside. Let's see. Anybody on today? This is not my, I know I didn't really put a whole lot of heads up, but it's been one of those kind of weeks. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody today? I'm feeling a little awkward or a little bit weird today because both my kids are gone. Maddie's at her school and Zeke is at his school, so I'm got a quiet house right now. So it's kind of different. Good morning. How are y'all today? I know I didn't get to get on Tuesday. That was Zeke's first day of his Mother's Day out program, and Eddie took off that day since he wanted to take him on his first day. So I didn't, and just the chaos of the day, I just didn't get on. So I didn't even know if I was going to do one at all this week, but Eddie asked me last night if I was going to get on today, and I said, well, I wasn't planning on it, but I can. I don't really have any major plans today. So I don't really know if many people will be on to chat or not, but why not? Why not get on? But I know a lot of what I tend to talk about is just mostly like kids and parenting and food. Always ask about dinner ideas. So I know it's not really technically like homestead stuff, but that's okay. It don't matter. So, but how's everybody's week been? Anybody do anything nice for their long weekend, or did they just work the whole time? Surprisingly, Eddie actually kind of took it easy, so that was nice for him. I mean, he still got some stuff done, but he didn't do as much as I would have thought he was going to try to do. He likes to push it. But so I'm trying to think of things to talk about. Sorry. It's a little easier when you have more like people in here talking, so we can kind of feed off of each other. Right now I'm just kind of winging it. So, but one of the things that we've been kind of looking into is we noticed on our daughter's schedule for her class, they had something called social and emotional training, and we weren't exactly sure what that was because we hadn't gotten any details on that. It was just happened to be printed on this piece of paper that they sent home. So I asked one of the other parents that had an older one if her daughter had gone through this, and she said no, but I noticed it was on Addison's. And Addison's is in the same grade as Maddie. She said, I know it was on her thing. She's like, did Maddie say something? I said, no, it's just, we weren't sure what that is exactly. So I didn't know if it was, just a normal thing that they do now or what. But I did like message the first grade group and ask them, kind of what it was. And all they said was that it was a state mandated time to help kids develop understanding of their emotions and social interaction. So, but the more I kind of looked into it, okay, let me kind of start off with this. Like I don't want to seem like I'm judging or putting any particular person down. But there's certain things I think in schools that need to not be there. So, now they've made it to where, hello, off kilter. Now, schools, they can't have prayer, they can't do anything about the Bible or anything, but there's other things that they try to kind of push that if they're not going to allow for any type of faith-based discussions, then I don't think that these discussions need to be had either. So more that I was looking into this social and emotional training, it kind of seems like it was more kind of pushing the narrative of being accepting of all persons. And while there's to a point, I kind of understand that, but I think there's some things that need to be left for the family to discuss and explain. And I don't think that's the school's job. And I know there's like anything sexual orientation wise, I think needs to just not be put in front of our young children. I know some people don't agree with that. And I mean, this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to force that opinion on anybody. This is just my viewpoint. The way I see it is young kids are going to be bombarded by so much throughout their young lives that they don't need the school pushing things in their face either. Because in all truthfulness, I mean, most kids don't really pay attention to the way somebody dresses or the way somebody styles their hair or any of those things. Like they just don't really pay that much attention. That's not what they're focused on. They're more focused on, is this person nice to me? Will they play with me? That kind of thing. They're not focused on anything else really. And I think, and especially at young age, I don't think it needs to be pushed on them about anything sexual, anything, like most, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, they don't really think of their bodies being used for anything other than what they normally know it's for. Going to the bathroom, stuff like that. They don't think of it as a reproduction thing. And I don't think it needs to be pushed on them at a young age. They're going to get to a point where they're going to start asking questions, and they're going to get to a point where they might hear something or see something, and then they might become more curious. And I think as long as that is handled properly, it's not going to be that big a deal. But yeah, they're not mature enough. They're not going to understand, even if you try to use it in a language that's fit for their age group. They're not going to be able to really process what the information you're giving them. Now, I've always tried to be honest with our kids to a point. And when they ask me questions, if I feel like it's something that they won't understand, I give them kind of a broad explanation. And I just tell them, like there was this little boy that he was born with only part of his arm developed. So he didn't have like part of his arm and he didn't have a hand. And one of the things like we explained was he was just made the way God made him. I couldn't explain to them why he was like that, but I just said, some things are just the way they are. And that was that satisfied them. They were like, okay. And, they were all, as they get older and they start seeing more, diversity in their lives, they might have more questions. And I'm okay with them coming to me and asking questions. I'm not really okay with a classroom setting at a young age, them kind of being shown all these things that they're not going to understand. I mean, it's just, now if they're just teaching them to kind of be able to understand and control more of their emotions than, just like lashing out or throwing a fit or, internalizing everything. If they're trying to help them be more expressive and be more understanding, and like one of the things I read was that it's supposed to help them develop empathy towards their classmates and stuff. I'm okay with them getting to understand how to be respectful and friendly with people, and I want them to know that, I've even told them myself, like, there's a better way to handle your frustration. There's a better way to handle your anger. Screaming and yelling isn't getting it done. But I just hope that's all it is. I mean, the way I see it is, certain families, certain people, they live their life the way they feel they want to. That's not something that I'm trying to change. But at the same time, anything that's, I don't know, anything that is, okay, so they live their life the way they want to, and they don't want people judging them and putting them down and, making them feel like they're not accepted. But at the same time, a lot of those groups are the ones that are, pushing for, and, no Bibles, no faith, no religion, no, all these things. They don't want that to be a part of their child's experience or their family's experience, but they want everybody to accept their family experience. Like, it's very hypocritical. I'm not going to push what I feel on you, but okay, so I won't push my family values on you. I won't push my faith on you, but I don't want you to do that on me either. If you want me to respect you, you need to respect me, and you need to respect my wishes of how I want to handle things that my kids learn and when they learn it. So many times now, people get so mad and like violent almost to the point because you don't agree with them. Well, we don't have to agree. I can still respect you even though if I don't agree with you. I don't have to be on the same level of everything as you are just to have a mutual understanding. And it's ridiculous that nobody now can say anything without it causing divided families, divided friendships, divided, communities, and now divided country, all because I don't agree. Certain people don't agree with other people. You don't agree with me. I don't agree with you. What does that matter? Everybody has their own opinion, and you're allowed that. You're not meant to just, scream in everybody's face and then throw a hissy fit when they don't agree with you. I don't know. But if you don't want me to push my values and my faith on you, I can respect that, but give me the same respect. There's certain things that I may not totally agree with. It's not my choices, but I'm not going to sit here and scream in your face and tell you that, your choices are wrong. That's not for me to say. I don't have to agree with them, but that's all it is. I can have my opinion. I can even voice my opinion without it causing a riot. It just, I don't know. Society is weird. And I don't know. So that's my little rant so far for today, because I don't really want to take my kids out of public school, because I really do think that there's a lot of benefit there. Not only just from the social aspect of it, but sometimes, like I told Eddie, I said, in all truthfulness, I think our daughter learns better from other people, because she doesn't get so easily frustrated and doesn't just give up and expects me to do it for her. Like when somebody else is trying to work with her, she's a lot more receptive. But yeah, no two people think exactly the same. I mean, that's why you can have discussions, and you can have debates, but they don't have to be to the point where, because I said this and you don't agree with it, now you hate me and you're, going to threaten me. And that just shows immaturity. I mean, there's a lot of things that I see on the news and on Facebook and all these places that I just kind of roll my eyes because I don't agree with it. But that's all it is. I don't agree with it. I might voice my opinion, but it usually has somebody blowing up. But it's just sad that we come to a point in our society where you can't even have a discussion with anybody without the fear of, like, they're going to get their feelings hurt, and it's going to cause this big tension, and now they're not going to be your friend, or your family doesn't talk to you anymore because you view things this way and they don't. I don't understand it. I mean, there's even things that Eddie will say or think or whatever, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's just the way he is. I might kind of like roll my eyes or chuckle at him. I'm like, okay, but that's just something that I've come to understand and love about him. I mean, he's a little bit out there for me, but that's just who he is. And it's not a bad thing. It's just who he is. But I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things that I've said and that he thinks I'm completely ridiculous, but it's just part of marriage. Let me pull out. Yeah. See, and yeah, if there was like a major safety issue, yeah, I mean, that's something that you can't risk, in my opinion. I mean, these are your children. Part of our job as parents is to protect them. And I don't know. I mean, so far, I mean, this is only, she's in first grade. So, we're kind of learning as she is. And I'm hoping that even though it's state mandated, that they kind of keep it simple and don't push anything that's not appropriate. Yeah, that's understandable. A lot of the teachers and the staff at least in the elementary school, because that's all we've dealt with so far. I know there are some of the middle and high school faculty that that go to either our church or one of the other churches in town that are very involved. And I think that a lot of them, they carry that with them into the classroom. They may not be able to, read Bible verses or pray with their students or pray, over the classroom with students in there, but they at least hold the values, and so I think they are respectful of that to as much as they can be. And we were looking at the schedule, and this social and emotional training is only like 10 minutes in the morning, and like some of the stuff that she's brought home hasn't suggested anything extreme. And so that's why I haven't really said anything, but it's one of those things that we're kind of keeping on our radar just to kind of watch, because, and I even told Maddie, I said, now, if there's anything that comes up at school that makes you have questions, and I said, you can come to me and ask me. Don't feel like you can't, ask me things that you learn at school just, because you don't understand it. And I said, I'd rather you ask me so that I can kind of find out what's going on too. I'll get some Bible today. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm being too quick to jump on something. And I like I said, I want her to experience the things, or both of our kids. I want them to experience things. I want them to go into school and experience all of the things that go along with it. And there's going to be things that we do have to discuss and make sure that she understands how, what we feel on things and how we view things. And I don't want her to go into a classroom and be negative or be hurtful to anybody. And, she knows that, there is times where I say, everybody's different. You're not going to find somebody exactly like you. And that's a good thing. That's why we build friendships, and how we build relationships is because we are all different and we can learn and grow together. And she's never brought up any major, like, I noticed somebody doing something weird today. Like, she's always just like, my friends and I played together. We chased grasshoppers, she's 6. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they're supposed to be doing, not worried about, hurting somebody's feelings. Okay, that's not right. They are supposed to worry about hurting people's feelings, but not being, I guess I don't see the point of making everything aware, like I said, kids don't really pay that much attention to what people wear or dress or put their hair, they don't pinpoint those things. Now, they might say, hey, she has a pretty dress on today, or, I like the way that he combed his hair, or look at, he has colors in his hair, stuff like that. They notice those things, but not, really any other major transformations. And I don't think, if the more we just shove it in their face, that's when they start noticing differences. If we don't make a big deal out of it, they won't make a big deal out of it. They feed off of what we do. As long as, we show respect and love for the people around us, they will too. I don't know. I know. I can remember even when I was in middle school, they started us in a strict dress code of khaki pants or shorts and a white t-shirt. And I was like, people still are, the people who are bullies and are looking for things to make somebody else feel bad, they're going to do that regardless. It ain't gonna matter what you wear. You can wear the high-end stuff. You can wear the stuff that you get at Goodwill. It ain't gonna matter. Oh goodness, that's crazy that they would test her 2 different times and tell you the 2 extremes. I don't know. And kids go through phases too, and I don't know, a lot of those tests don't put that into consideration. There's going to be a time where, your kid, they might be like focused, on point. Everything they do is great. And then the next year, they could just be going through a phase or whatever, and their focus isn't as clear. Has nothing to do with their abilities. It just means that they're going through something. Yeah. And that's not fair either, because to me, the children that actually need the extra help and who are special needs, or whatever the case may be, I think when other kids are just kind of shoved into the classroom to make numbers or whatever, it takes away from those children who actually really need that help. And it's just not fair. It's not fair for the kids, at all, whether they need the special help or they don't. Yeah, that's one of the things I am worried about as she gets older, is all the testing. But, well, I guess we'll cross those bridges as we come to them. But, it just, I don't know. It just seems like there's good things and bad things that I see that have changed in school since I was in school. But, like, I can remember kindergarten. The main things I remember of kindergarten are playing in centers, going outside, and nap time. But our daughter, and I think a lot of other kindergartners were, in different states or whatever, were doing this too. But they actually started them on like writing and reading and math and science and, the actual like major subjects. And at first, there was something one day, Maddie brought home something from her kindergarten that said, that they were going to be doing some kind of grafting. And I was like, she's in kindergarten. What are they going to graft? I don't even remember how to graft anything really. What? I was kind of taken back, but but it's just, she, at the same time, it didn't seem to be too much. Like, it wasn't like they were just sitting at a desk being forced to do nonstop, book work. They, they had activities and they made it fun and made it interesting and still let them, have their time in like different centers, but they tried to make the centers more academic than just play. And they, they still had outside time and all this stuff, but, and it did amaze me how much she took in. Like, there would be days that she would come home and she would immediately just grab a piece of paper and go to the table and start doing like 2 + 2 = 4, 1 + 3 = 4. Like, she would be like doing math problems, sitting there just doing it because she wanted to. And, or she learned how to spell a different word today. So she would be coming home, like, she learned how to spell love. And so she came home and, like, I don't know how many pieces of paper she wrote love on and made like hearts and different things all over it. So it just, it had a good place, it wasn't, and she didn't come home like stressed out or overwhelmed or anything like that. So that I was still okay with everything. But I know they really seem to focus on academics a lot, even now at the younger ages, which is, I know, is good, and it will help them, because you want to give your kids the best opportunity. And, sometimes you don't know what the best opportunity really is. You don't know if it's less, book knowledge and more just like social interaction and, that kind of, hands-on things. But I know a lot of us probably had some type of home economics when we were in school. Or and then I know there was different versions of it, but basically home ec. And so they took that away from the schools here years ago, and now they're bringing it back, but they're calling it adulting or adulthood 101, and they're trying to teach these young teenagers life skills. And I think they've actually incorporated even like taxes and stuff like that, stuff other than just cooking and cleaning. Oh goodness. See, that's what I'm scared of. I don't want my first grader to be bombarded with anything about sex or sexual orientation, or like, okay, my daughter is 6 years old. She knows that babies grow in mommy's tummies, but she doesn't know how they get there. She doesn't know really how they come out. She just knows that they grow in there and then a baby's there, and she does know that some babies nurse on their mommies, and then some babies don't nurse on their mommies, and they have to be, fed with a bottle. And some of those bottles have formula and some of them have breast milk. And, she knows some things, but it's, within a certain parameter, like we haven't discussed the birds and the bees, and we haven't discussed, all the things that her body can do, because they can't yet. And there's no reason for her to even think about that until it gets to a point where she might have to understand those things. Exactly. The parents are the ones that, and I know not every child, unfortunately, not every child has those involved parents and parents that would give them that information when it's appropriate. And the kids should be able to go to an adult that they feel comfortable. If that means a teacher or a counselor or a principal or a pastor or a preacher or whoever it is, they should be able to go to that person and ask questions and it be okay. But if there is a parent that is willing to take that responsibility like they should, and be the one to make those decisions and have those discussions, then if a child comes to you and says, hey, I have questions, and be like, I think it's good for you to ask your mom and dad those questions, and if they don't explain it or whatever, then the child can come back. But there's certain things that need to be left to the family, need to be left to the parents, need to be left to the grandparents or aunts and uncles or whoever these children are growing up with. And they need to understand that there's certain things that are okay and there's certain things that are not okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's right. The parents should have a choice. Like, one of the things I was reading on this social and emotional training mess is that certain ones that can be done, or certain curriculum, I guess, there is an option for parents to opt their children out of it, but schools aren't letting that be known. And I don't know if it's really the school's choice or if it's, coming from the state or whatever. It's just, I think that's when, you get to the point where the government and the state and the whoever is having way too much hand in on family matters. You know, there's, that's a whole nother discussion right there. Too much state interference. I mean, the sad part is most of the time the state or the agencies will get involved in a family that doesn't actually need them to be involved, and then the families that do need somebody to step in and be a child advocate or savior or whatever get pushed to the wayside. And this whole system is just messed up. It's just it's one of those touchy subjects. Anything really is a touchy subject, but government, politics, religion, and orientation of self seems to be the big hot button. Oh, good Lord. It's going to be, there's going to be that catch-22. You're going to be, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you leave your kids in public school, then they get pushed a lot of the politically correct stuff, just bombarded onto them. And then if you homeschool them, people like to stick their nose into the business and say, well, you must be trying to hide your kids away for a reason. Either you're abusing them or whatever. I think as long as, let's see, yeah. Oh, goodness. And it's sad because there's also those people that will use the, homeschool to do things the wrong way. Maybe they are doing those, the being abusive or whatever, but some people just don't want any type of outside involvement. So they say that they're homeschooling their kids, but they're not actually teaching them anything. I mean, I've come into contact with children who were older than my daughter who couldn't even tell me how to spell their name or what letter it started with. They couldn't tell me colors that they were, seeing because they were being homeschooled but not being taught anything. And so you're going to have people that are going to mess with the system no matter what. I mean, you're going to have those ones who, but the ones that it hurts are the ones who are doing it right. How does that work? It's like the people who are doing, the homeschooling the right way and teaching their children and getting them to where they need to be, sometimes even over, because they're accelerating the learning process, and the kids are actually doing really well and getting, to the point where they could, go to college early. But then you have those people who are abusing the system, and now it's going to cause conflicts for the people who are doing it right. And it's like, and, I don't know. Being a parent or anything right now is just, it seems, I can't say it's the hardest time ever because I wasn't a parent before, but it just seems like there's so much more junk you have to deal with. I mean, I don't remember my mom having to even consider homeschooling. And for a while, my mom was a single parent. And, it just, and, the whole bullying thing, I don't know if it's worse than it used to be or if it's just blown up where it's, I don't know, where everybody just labels everything as bullying. Because, I can remember I was in elementary school and I was outside waiting for my after school care van to come pick me up. So I'm standing there in front of the school waiting for them. And this girl comes up to me and says, "Is your name Jennifer?" And I said, "Yeah." And she punched me in the stomach because my name was Jennifer, my hair was curly, and that meant that I wanted to be a black girl. I didn't know this girl. I had no idea who she was. And I never ran into her again. I don't know what happened or why this happened, but I had no control over her, telling me that because my hair was curly and my name was Jennifer that I was trying to be something I wasn't. But, and I can remember in high school, because my hair is not just like wavy, but it's, kinky curly, and it's actually chilled out since I was a teenager. But I always had, really curly hair. And I don't know how many times I had, girls come up to me and be like, "Girl, you're part black, aren't you? You got that curly hair. You can't be just white." And they'd be like, "Oh, your mama must have slept with the mailman," just saying all kinds of stuff. People are going to say crap, you can't stop them, but you can't let it sit there and, cause you to, spiral down and either take your own life or, take life of other people just because somebody said something mean to you. There's just as many people that are going to say mean things to you as there are going to be people that say nice things to you. Granted, we as humans tend to take the negative and hold on to it and stew on it. There could be one person telling you you're a fat, ugly person and 1,000 people telling you that you're a beautiful, strong person and you're amazing and all these positive things, but you're going to just remember the one person that said something bad. But see, like there was two, I actually ended up there was two girls that were named Jennifer other than me. There was a black girl, a Hispanic girl, and me. We were all named Jennifer. And it's like, this girl, I can even remember, it was in middle school. It was another, I don't know if it was the same girl or if it was another girl, but another black girl, and her name was Jennifer. And she told me that I stole her name. Like I had a choice. I was named Jennifer when I was born. It's not like I changed it because I met her. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to change my name to Jennifer now." And I think that's actually when I started going by Jenny, was because I was so tired of it. Like this was now like the second or third time that somebody had, gotten upset with me about my name when I had no control over that. So I started going by Jenny. And then in high school, I went by Jen, which, okay, random side note. Does anybody have little kids that have toys that make random noises just out of nowhere? Our son has one of those toothless dragons from How to Train Your Dragon. It just randomly started huffing and growling in the other room. Scared the mess out of me. Especially when I'm here by myself. It's like, there's nobody touching you. Stop it. But, yeah, it's just random. It's like, but, I know there's certain things about people that we can't change, like I can't change that my eyes are blue and my hair is curly, and it just, there's certain things, and there's going to be those people that just are so insecure with themselves or they're so eager to be accepted and loved that they're going to do whatever it takes to get attention. And that's where those bullies come in, because they're poking at you because they want somebody to see them. They want somebody to notice them. I don't know what's wrong with, their family, their life, what's been going on that has caused them to be so hurtful and negative, but it's just, people are going to find any way they can to try to, jab at you. And it's usually because of something that they're insecure about. Granted, as a kid, you don't see it that way. But that's one of the things, like, I try to make sure that Maddie knows. And, like, if somebody says something that is hurtful, don't really take it to heart, because it's just something that they're having a problem with them, not with you. Yeah. And it's just like I said, and she was probably had that insecurity with herself, and so she has to make somebody else feel bad so that they're on the same level of hurt as she is. Yeah. And that's the thing, kids, like I said, I don't really think that the bullying thing has gotten worse. I think we just made a bigger deal out of it. So now it seems more mainstream to be that way. Before, I mean, if you were a bully, whether you got away with it for a little while, but eventually somebody either snatched you up and kicked your butt, or, you got reprimanded somehow. Yeah. And see, I was shy too. And I think that's, maybe that's partly why I didn't ever, like, lash out at these girls who were mean to me, or, whatever it was. But I was quiet. I was, I was the girl sitting in the back of the class, by myself most of the time. And I did make friends, but even with my friends, I was quiet. Yeah. Well, and see, I can remember in high school, I had taken an accounting class as an elective, and I was sitting in the class, and one of the guys came in and he sat down next to me, and I actually knew him from whenever I was younger, because his mom was the director of the daycare / after school care that I went to. So I saw him all the time. And so I kind of knew him, and he recognized me, and, so we talked a little bit. Hey, Teresa. It was kind of a random, just get on. But he was talking to me a little bit, but for the most part, I was quiet. I didn't really talk to anybody. I didn't know anybody else in the class. I just sat there and would be doing my work. Well, there was a couple of girls in the class that kept looking at me, or they would turn around, just kind of stare at me. I'm like, what? I didn't understand what was going on. I'm like, okay, just sitting here. Finally, one of the girls comes up to me. She goes, so what, you think you're better than us? And I was like, I don't even understand how you got that. And she said, well, you're so quiet. You don't talk to any of us. Like, you think you're so much better. Like, you're stuck up. I'm like, no, I don't know anybody, so I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not good at making that first step to meet somebody and become friends. I'm quiet. If somebody talks to me, I'll talk to them, but I'm not the one to usually initiate it. And so I'm just like, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just sitting here being quiet. And I eventually became friends with that girl, because she said, well, I just thought you were stuck up. And she's like, after, talking with me for a little bit, she's like, you're like the nicest person. I'm like, I don't know why you would assume I would be stuck up just because I'm quiet. So, I mean, it wasn't like I was, glaring at anybody or rolling my eyes or, like, ugh. I just was sitting there doing my work. But it's funny because I think part of it was she felt like, or maybe she felt like other people saw her as stuck up. And so she had to put that on me to make herself feel better. I don't know. But it's just, everybody's going to be quick to judge and quick to push their opinion. And to me, I'm one of those like laid back people. I'm like, okay, whatever. I can either agree or disagree, but you probably won't know the difference because I'm just going to be like, okay. But, I do try to tell, my daughter that, not everybody's going to be nice to you. You're probably going to find people that are not going to be nice. And I don't want you to feel like that's going to ruin your whole life because this one person isn't nice to you or doesn't like you. There's probably something more going on in the background that we don't know about. So we'll just let it go, let it be. Don't encourage it. Don't engage it. Don't let it bother you. I mean, even with her brother, he's 4, she's 6. They're in that whole picking at each other stage or arguing. I thought I had a few years before that would start, but the whole like, yeah, no, yes. And I mean, just constantly, if one of them says something, the other's going to say the opposite and they're going to start fighting. It seems like it's been like this for the last few months, every day. So I'm like, and she's like, Zeke hurt my feelings. I'm like, he's just saying it to get a reaction. Don't let it get to you. Yeah, see, and that's the way I am too. Like, I know now I get on here and I talk for way too long probably, but it took a little bit, and it actually was because of meeting some people, through like the Bayou Bash and actually putting, I guess, that actual person-to-person interaction that made me feel a little bit more comfortable about getting on here, because then I feel like I'm getting on and talking with people that I actually know. So I know I'm pretty quiet to a point, and then once I do start talking, yeah, I don't stop. Yeah. I mean, like I know you probably see me kind of bouncing around over here because I'm talking with my hands a lot. And I don't know if that's a nervous habit or what, but I tend to talk with my hands. So I'm trying to like hold my hands down. Stop bouncing around because I'm horrible. I just talk with my hands all the time. And I also look around a lot. So a lot of people think that whenever I'm talking to them, I don't know why it is, like eye contact just makes me feel like taken back or something. So I tend to like kind of look away and break it for a second. And, some people see that as, you're being untruthful or, you're not really paying attention. And it's not that. It's just a habit. Even talking right now to the little camera, I keep looking away. It's one of those weird habits. Yeah. I've been very surprised with the connections that we've made through YouTube, and it's some that I think, can, sustain for a long period of time and not just be superficial. Yeah, this Tuesday, I just didn't even get a chance to think about it. Zeke started his preschool Mother's Day Out program on Tuesday. And Eddie was off. He took the day off on Tuesday so that he could go with me to drop him off and drop Maddie off at school. And so he was home and we were getting things done. And before I realized it was time to go pick him up, and the day was pretty much over. We're at the moment, yeah. My son will get out at 1:00. So right now my house is quiet other than me talking. It's very unusual. But he'll go to school for 2 days a week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Maddie goes all week. So at least 2 days a week I'll be kid free for a few hours. I don't know what I'm going to do exactly, but but yeah. So I know I'm going to try and maybe get more of my fall stuff up. Oh God. You were too honest. That's wow. Ain't that's just that's weird. I mean, you would think that they would want honest people, but I know one of the things that Eddie and I were talking about was when Zeke starts going to kindergarten, that maybe I could see if anything's available through the school, like maybe in the cafeteria or something of that nature. That way I could, I'll have a job, but I'll have more flexibility in my afternoon schedule so that I could still get them from school and bring them home and all that, and we wouldn't have to try to figure out either a after school care or somebody else to pick them up, which wouldn't be that big a deal because my mom, she lives pretty much right down the road. She lives about 8 miles or so, 8 minutes away. So I mean, if there was ever a time that I couldn't pick them up, she could. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. For a long time, I always thought, well, maybe I'd like to work in a hospital or something. I don't think I can. I even thought about working in like the, labor and delivery area in like the nursery or something. But when our daughter was born, they had to put her in the NICU for a week because they needed to help or wait for her lungs to open up more or keep developing. She wasn't taking full breaths. But being in the NICU, that broke my heart. Like seeing all them little tiny babies and all those tubes and machines and the parents, I just, I had a hard time. I mean, oh, that would be hard too, hospice. Because I think like with when you, especially in like a hospice situation, sometimes you get so attached. I had a cousin. She was, when she was born, something went awry and she ended up not being able to breathe for a few minutes. And she was born in a small town hospital, and it took them a little longer than it should have to get her breathing. So she ended up having brain damage, and she was essentially an infant her whole life. They didn't expect her to make it past the age of 8, and she made it to 38. So, but she was the type, she had to lay in a hospital bed pretty much her whole life. For a long time, she could, eat through her mouth. Like my granny would, whatever she was making for dinner, she would just blend it up into like a baby food consistency and feed it to her, and she could eat it that way. Probably about 10 or 15 years ago, she kind of stopped eating as well. And so they had to put a feeding tube in, and she had horrible scoliosis. So the curvature of her back, she just had like a complete zigzag almost. It was horrible. And she had to wear diapers, but they always said they didn't know how much she could see. They didn't really know how much she could comprehend. They didn't know how much she could hear. But I can remember, I grew up with her. She couldn't talk, but she could make noises, and she could, she recognized people. Maybe not in a visual sense, but in a, she recognized people's voices. I can remember it was, I think during a summer one time, because I was staying with my granny, and me and Vicky were laying on the bed, and I was watching The Little Mermaid, and the part where Ariel starts singing and Ursula's taking her voice. Well, since it's just that where Vicky would start like trying to mimic that. So me and her would like sing that together, so it's like stuff like that. Like she could understand things, she could hear and take things in, I think more so than the doctors realized. But as years went on, her body was just getting harder and harder for her to function. I guess because of the scoliosis was getting so bad, it was like tweaking all of her internal organs. And so for the last like 5 years of her life, or maybe not that long, it was the last 2 years, she was on hospice, so that a nurse could come in and help Granny, make sure that all of everything was going okay. Because my granny took care of her pretty much her entire life. But she was, they just kind of came in, and they would have like a physical therapist coming in, just kind of work with her a little bit on her muscles, so that she didn't get, because there was times where because she just kind of stayed drawn up, that her muscles would cramp and tighten up. So they would have somebody coming in. But the hospice nurses that would be coming in to, a couple times a week to help out, like they developed a relationship not only with Vicky but with Granny, and to the point where they were almost like family. And I think, and then when Vicky did pass, those nurses and the pastor that had come, they all came to her funeral. So, and they cried just as much as the rest of us did. It's just, I think that's one of those jobs that I don't think I personally could ever do, but for those who can, you are angels on earth, because that's a hard thing to handle, I would think. I don't, at least for me, because I can't even talk about Vicky without crying. So just watching somebody decline, because Vicky, she like I said, she would recognize people. There would be times, especially when I became a teenager and young 20s, I was doing my own thing, so I didn't go out to my granny's as much. But when I would come in, And I would go over to her bed and I'd be like, hey, Vicky Lynn. And she would like, you know, perk up a little bit and she'd bring her hands together. And I would like put my hands on her hand and be like, hey, how are you doing, girly? And she would like grab my hand and start like, just making noises. And I would sit there and have conversations with her. You know, and my granny, I think, you know, is just even her taking care of Vicky, you know, Vicky's entire life. I mean, she, in my opinion, is an angel because, I mean, that was not easy. You know, I mean, like I said, Vicky had, you know, a lot of health issues, but I think what sustained her for as long as it did was because she was so loved by everybody. You know, like our whole family on that side, we loved her. We all took care of her. We talked to her. We helped with her feedings and her diaper changes and helping Granny wash her, and like we all participated in her life. So, I mean, even when my great grandmother passed away, which would have been my granny's mom, my granny wasn't going to go to the funeral because she didn't really want to leave Vicky with anybody. So there was only a few of us that she really felt comfortable with, and that was either my aunt, who was Vicky's mom, my mom, or me, because we, you know, helped take care of her. We, you know, we knew her feeding schedule, we knew what medicines and all that. So I ended up I told my granny, I was like, no, you need to go say goodbye to Grandma. And I mean, that's your mom. So you need to say goodbye. I will stay with Vicky. And, you know, she was okay with that. But, you know, there's so many things that my granny probably didn't get to participate in because she was always taking care of Vicky. But she never complained. She never, you know, let it get her down. She always viewed Vicky as a blessing. And, you know, even when my pawpaw was starting to decline in health, and he had Alzheimer's, and he was starting to get to the point where he was getting violent. And, but I mean, like, you never saw it like affect her. I don't know how she did it. Like, my granny is this amazing woman. I don't even know how else to explain her, because I mean, you know, being just awful, just talking mean and putting her down and everything. Because I mean, he wasn't exactly the nicest person before, but he got worse when the disease took over. But she would just be like, Earl, I'm not going to tell you again. Just sit down and be quiet. And like, she just handled it. She didn't let it get to her. And then she just keep going about her thing. You know, she never let it stop her. And and then like when my grandmother, which was her mom, my granny, my great grandmother, she had a stroke, and so like it affected her speech, like because half of her face was, you know, wouldn't move, and it was really hard to understand anything she said. But you know, Granny helped take care of her, and you know, one of the things I love about my family on that side is they always find a way to like find joy in things. So even though Grandma couldn't hardly speak, it was very hard to understand her. Like, she would crack jokes. You couldn't understand what she was saying, but she knew that it was hilarious because we'd all start cracking up. Like, I can remember there was one time she was at my granny's house, and she was sitting in this chair, and Granny goes, Mama, do you need anything? And she was trying to say something, and she's like, blah, 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 blah. And Granny goes, Mama, what? She's like, I stink. And Grandma goes, like, it was just hilarious. Like, you couldn't understand what she was saying, but you knew what she was saying. And So then, of course, Granny cracks up and Grandma cracks up. And she had one of those laughs that just was contagious. Like, you couldn't help but just laugh with her. And you didn't even know what was funny, but you would laugh with her. But, you know, it's just, I love that about my family on my mom's side. Like, even when things are hard or even when things are not going very well, they find joy in it. And that's something that I hope I can continue, because there are days that I don't. I let things get to me and I don't find the joy in it. But I look back on stuff that I've grown up around and I realize that they found joy in everything. I mean, whether it was, you know, the tiniest little joke and in a bad situation or whatever, you know, they always found the joy and a way to smile and laugh and love each other. So, you know, I just, I kind of get, I'm sorry if my, I kind of go off in like 6 different directions. There's a thing of, you know, if I'm telling you a story, be ready for like 4 different stories in the process of me telling you the story, because I'm gonna like veer off. But yeah, sorry. You know, there are certain people that I see and get to experience anything with, you know, experience some point in life with, that just amaze me. You know, nurses and doctors and people who can, you know, do these extreme jobs that I don't know if I could ever do. I mean, I've worked with kids in daycares and I have worked in offices and, you know, with adults, and honestly, I prefer children, but you know, it's okay. Because at least children, you can kind of like redirect them when they're driving you crazy. Adults, not so much. But so yeah, I think there's a lot of amazing people in this world, and I wish that more people acknowledged it, not just individuals and as, you know, but just as a whole. Like, we're all amazing in some way, and too often we like to find the negative instead of the positive, and I just hope that we can turn that around a little bit, find those positive things in people and shine a light on it. You know, don't dredge up the negative and the things that people have done that maybe they've made a mistake in their life. That's not who they are. It's a choice they made. You know, we've all made those choices, I'm sure. There's plenty of times that I've made a choice in my life that I'm like, good Lord. Yeah. Animals. Yeah. Animals and kids. I don't know, but adults, I don't mind people. Like I said, I just think too often adults like to just dwell on the negative, and I can't stand that. I don't like drama. I don't like negativity. I just want to be, yes, everyone has something to offer. And yeah, I mean, even with our kid, like, I tell them, you know, when you are walking around in the grocery store, if you see somebody, it's okay to like smile at them, to say hi. It doesn't mean you have to like be their best friend, you know, but sometimes a smile from somebody is the only positive thing that person will see that day. And I know there's crazy people in this world that'll take that in the wrong direction, but there are those that won't, and we shouldn't allow the people that will do a negative thing out of it and make us not do the positive thing. And I know, like, I mean, I've gotten in those zones too. And then there's times where, I like walking down an aisle and see somebody coming, and, either I won't say anything at all, or I might say, hello, how are you today? But, it just depends on the situation. But I know my daughter, she's asked me a couple different times, why are you so nice to them? Do you know them? I'm like, no. But it's okay to be nice. Even I told her, I said, it's even okay to be nice to somebody when they're not being nice to you. Because just because they're being rude or mean doesn't mean you have to be. Yeah. Don't let the negative keep you from doing the positive. Because the more, and because there's people out there that's all they look for. They look for ways that they can, knock someone down. And it's sad, but usually because, like we were saying earlier, it's usually because they're miserable in some aspect of their life. And, misery does love company, and it will do whatever it needs to try to spread that misery around. But that's where, as individuals, we come into play, because we can say, I'm not going to let that happen today. But, you just can't. And I know I'm just as guilty of letting negative and hurtful things dwell in me, and, things that were said or done to me years ago that I've held on to, and all it does is hurt me. It doesn't affect that other person at all. I mean, they got a split second of satisfaction from being able to zing you with something, but it's been my baggage that I've been carrying now and not letting it go. So all it's doing is weighing me down. And I'm trying to learn how to let go of those things. And, the past is the past. I can't fix what somebody else said. All I can do is fix how it affects me. And I think that became more apparent to me when I had a daughter, when I had Maddie, because I didn't want her walking through her life holding on to as much negativity as I have, because I know it's hard. It's weighing, it drags you down. It makes you, doubt so much. Thanks for stopping by. But, it just, I became a lot more aware of my personal stuff whenever I had kids, I guess, because I didn't want to put that on them. So, but it's hard. I mean, there are days that I still like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that, but I don't want my kids to say that about themselves. So it's like I have to catch myself and be like, I might feel it or think it, but I don't have to say it, because it's like saying it puts it out there. It makes it real, I guess. So whenever I'm the one sitting there saying, oh, I'm too dumb, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm just not good enough to do this, I don't know how, I don't, whatever the case may be, I'm too big, I'm too fat, whatever. All I'm doing is putting that negativity back out in front of my face, it's like, and now if I'm saying it out loud, I'm putting it in front of my kid's face too. And that's not their burden to bear. It's not their baggage that they need to worry about. So I've tried to be more aware, tried to be more positive minded, and And even if I have the negative thought, I try to just be like, okay, don't let it get to you. That's just, whatever. I need to let that go. Or maybe if you just try, you could see that maybe you can do it. I try to give myself the same pep talk I give my kids. It's weird because, and it's not like I had a horrible childhood or people that were super mean to me. I mean, I had family members that weren't exactly the sweetest. I had my uncle on my dad's side always telling me, every time he saw me, how much fatter I was getting and how I, or this, just always having to point out. But my dad's side of the family are very negative people. And it's so interesting to me, like the two sides of my family. My dad's side of the family, very negative, very bah humbug, very, just gray. Every day is a sad day, at least a majority of them, not every single one, but a big chunk of them. And then my mom's side is very lighthearted, finding the joy, smiling. When bad things happen, they gather together and they support each other. So you have these two extremes. And out of those two extremes, my parents came together for a period of time and had me and my brother. And then my mom and dad divorced. It's just like, I mean, obviously there was a reason why they were to be together, because, I mean, out of that union came me and my brother. But it's just like, they're total opposites in everything. So, like, the negative and the positive. And then my mom's family are very, faith grounded, and, my great grandmother was a preacher, like all that kind of stuff. And my dad's side is the complete opposite. They're not like Satan worshipers or anything, but it's more just, they don't know if there is a God, or if there is hell and heaven, and they try to overly think everything. Especially my dad. My dad is one of these, like, he has to have logical proof of things before he can really believe it. And even then, he has to be able to prove it himself through the logic. I don't know. He's an odd duck, but so yeah, you have these two extremes, and it's like, how did this ever happen? How did me and my brother ever happen? But my mom's side of the family are all very positive and uplifting, and my dad's side are they like to point out all the bad. They like to point out the negative. They like to kind of kick you when you're down. I mean, even my dad once told me, I was probably late teens, early 20s. And so when I was growing up, I was never like overweight. I was never a big kid until I got probably halfway through high school. And there was a period of time where I kind of retreated into myself. I guess, I don't know if I was going through some like depression or what, but I just kind of stopped doing the things that I used to do. And in that period of time, I kind of started gaining a little bit of weight. And I wasn't huge, but I wasn't tiny either. I was, I wasn't as big as I am now, but I was still getting kind of thick. But I can remember, I went over to my dad's house one day, and he was just, we were talking, and he's like, I just can't get over it. I said, what? He said, well, you used to be such a pretty girl. He said, and then you just let yourself go, and I just don't know how to help you get back. And that kind of blow is hard to hear from somebody who's supposed to love you, and I kind of said, well, sorry, can't help it. He said, well, you could, you could just, get healthy. And, he said, you could have been a model, but you just let all that go and you just let yourself go. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. I don't know how to change that, but I'm sorry. I guess I disappointed you in that side. But it wasn't just me. Like, there was a time when my dad was drinking with my uncle, and my brother was over there, and my dad proceeded to tell my brother that he didn't know if my brother was his biological son or if my mom had cheated on him with my later stepdad, but that Mark wasn't really a Richardson, that he might have been Everett's son and not my dad's son. My brother at this time was probably like 13. I was ticked when my brother called me crying about what my dad had said. I went over there the next day and I laid into my dad and into my uncle, and I'd never done that before. I mean, they have said some pretty hurtful things to me over the years, but I just kind of let it go. But when they both were like, yeah, it's been kind of the family secret that Mark might not really be part of our real family. And they were kind of ganging up on him. And he was 13. But I went over there and laid into them. I didn't care if they were hungover or not. And I told my dad, I was like, you need to talk to him. You need to explain this, because that is not okay. I guess it's that, kind of protective instinct, because he was my little brother. I'm not going to let them beat up on him emotionally like that. And my dad, tried to justify. He's like, well, I should have never said it to him, especially not in a drunken state. But, it always has been on my mind. I was like, well, then you need to go talk to mom. Or if you're really that concerned about it, then you need to go get a DNA test done, or go get the paternal test or whatever it's called. Because until you have proof, you need to shut up, is all there is to it. He's been your son for this many years. Why would you use that now? If you were really concerned, there was many times that you could have, tried to have that figured out. But again, we don't really see them very often. Like, my kids have seen my dad probably 4 times in their entire lives. Not necessarily my choice. I mean, I wouldn't mind my dad being a part of their life because he is their grandfather, but he's made the choice. He doesn't try to be involved. The only reason he's actually seen them the 4 times that he has is because I've gone over there with them to his house because of certain whatever that needed to be done. And so that's when he would see them. But he doesn't see them for any holidays. He doesn't contact them for their birthdays. He doesn't even so this tells you kind of how, like, I guess, selfish my dad is. He stopped, like, calling us on our birthdays even years ago. And it just became, it was like, whatever. Didn't think much of it. One year, my brother calls me and said that dad's upset with me. And I'm like, okay, why? And he said, well, dad's upset that you didn't call him on his birthday. Okay. Why does that matter now? He hasn't called us on our birthdays in years. He hasn't, sent us a card or any, acknowledgement of our birthdays. So I just assumed that it wasn't a big deal. But my dad was all upset because I didn't call him on his birthday. I'm like, okay. So I sent him an email. I didn't even call him. I just sent him an email like, sorry, missed your birthday. Hope you had a good one. And the sad thing is, I used to be such a daddy's girl when I was little. I mean, I loved my dad. when my mom and dad divorced, I really hated my mom for making my dad go away. It wasn't her. It wasn't her. I realize that now, but I was 6 at the time. So, I mean, I didn't understand. I just knew mom picked us up from daycare one day and told us that dad was gone and he wasn't coming back because they were splitting up. That he would live in a separate house and that we could see him, every other weekend. My brother was a baby. He doesn't really remember anything. I think maybe I was 5 because I think he was like a year old. No worries. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened with me and my dad. I just know that the dynamic changed at some point in time. And now, like, I don't even know. The only way I even know that he's alive is because him and my brother work at the same company. And I talked to my brother and I said, hey, so how's dad doing? Oh, he's okay. He's just being dad. All he does is he goes to work and he goes home. He might go to the grocery store once a month. He's a complete hermit. He doesn't get out at all. Which is why he says that he doesn't, see the kids, because he just doesn't want to get out and deal with people. What people? You're dealing with your family. Get over it. But what it is, and I've learned to just let it go. My mom is extremely involved in my kid's life, and she's the better of the two anyway, so I'm okay with that. I'd rather them have positive than negative. So, but, oh goodness, it's already noon. My goodness. But I can't believe I've been on here an hour and a half. I didn't think I'd have that much to talk about. But like we said earlier, once you get me talking. Oh, goodness. Family is interesting. And you have good and bad and everything in between. But I just, like my, like Ed's dad, he's tried to be more involved the last few years. At first, he didn't really put in an effort. He's another one that's kind of negative. And we try not to be around them very much, but it's not really intentional. It's just that we don't really, I guess we just don't really think of them being involved to, invite them or go over there that much. My husband and his dad's relationship was rocky for a long time. It still kind of is, but it's better than it was. But it's just, family is weird. There's certain things that I don't understand and certain things I probably never will understand, and I just hope we can be decent examples to our kids. Oh, that's hard. Yeah. Well, with my kids, I don't try to just be all like sunshine and rainbows and everything's great in this world. I want them to understand that, there's two sides to every coin. There's always going to be the positives and negatives, but it's how you handle it that's going to push you through in life. If you let those negative things drag you down and hold you down, I mean, that's something that's gonna make things harder. It's not easy to let go of the negative, but yeah, I mean, with like my husband, with my dad, so my mom has been married, or she got remarried once, after my mom and dad divorced, and my first stepdad passed away. And she got remarried to the man she's married to now, which my kids only know him as their grandpa, as Pawpaw. So, like, my mom and stepdad are their granny and Pawpaw, because that's what they've known. And my dad is their grandpa Richardson, but they don't even like know him. Like, they don't. There was one day, I think some pictures of our wedding, and when my dad walked me down the aisle, like Madeline was saying, "Who's that man walking with you?" And I said, "That's it's your grandpa Richardson. That's my dad." She's like, "That's Pawpaw?" I said, "No, that's not Pawpaw. Pawpaw is my stepdad. My real dad is your grandpa Richardson." And she's like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "I've seen him before." I said, "Yeah, you've seen him a couple times." But I mean, that's how much of a stamp that he is in their minds. Like, they don't even know him. Like, they see pictures and they still don't recognize him. And another selfish point for my dad was when my brother got married this last October. He didn't come to the wedding because he didn't want to deal with people. And he talked about, I want to just rip his mustache off, like, come on, you only have 2 kids. He told me that he wouldn't have even come to my wedding if I didn't make him feel guilty for not walking me down the aisle. So it wasn't even because he wanted to be there. It's because I made him feel guilty. Gotta love a wonderful, loving father. I mean, he was never abusive, like physically abusive or anything, but it's just, he's not the dad that he's not the dad that I wished for sometimes, like I see some of these other people with their relationship with their dads, and I'm like, why couldn't I have that? But at the same time, I have to remember that the relationship I do have with him is partly why I am who I am. So, got to see the silver lining in that cloud. Jeez. But, oh. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't understand, like, your son's getting married and you can't even just suck it up for a whole 15, 20 minutes sitting in a chair watching your son get married to the woman that he loves. You don't have to stay for the after thing, the what do they call it, reception. Nobody's making you stand up and make a speech. Nobody's making you stay. You could have stood in the back, watched him get married, and left. All right, Teresa, that's all right. I'm probably going to get off here in a minute too, so I can eat some lunch before I have to go pick up Zeke. But, yeah, I don't know. I really hope that I can learn enough from my dad to not be like him. That's all I can pray for. I don't want to be a selfish parent. I don't want to put that burden on my children, because that's not fair. They didn't pick me, so it's not their responsibility to make me happy, to make my life better. It's my responsibility to raise them and make them and help them, achieve the great things in their life that they can strive for. So I guess in a way, my dad being selfish and antisocial and all these other things is a blessing in disguise, because it helps me see what I don't want to be and what I don't want for my kids. So I can see that and take that away from it. So silver lining. But I think I will get off of here too, so that I can eat something and maybe clean up a little bit before I have to go pick up my son. But I appreciate everybody getting on here and chatting. And I hope everyone has a wonderful and blessed week, great weekend, and I hope to see y'all soon. Talk to you later. Bye.